Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and today we have a new blue post that has come out with some important information as well about class set acquisition and the changes coming in 10.1 and how all the changes that went into 10.0 worked out. So without further ado, let's get into this. There's some big stuff towards the end of this, so skip ahead to there if you don't want to read this first bit with me, but I think this first bit's really interesting as well. So, hey everyone, with 10.1, coming soon, basically, we want to catch up about the rewards, and we're going to talk about changes to Revival Catalyst, class set acquisition, raid rewards, as well as some of the history behind how we've arrived to our current approach and how these philosophies are evolving over time. It's going to be a pretty long post, blah, blah, blah. First off, let's talk about the Revival Catalyst, formerly the Creation Catalyst, formerly the Inspiration Catalyst, briefly on PTR, and how we got to where we are today. Early on in 10.0's decision or development, we knew we would keep the unlock timing of 6 weeks after the season begins, which certainly wasn't the most popular decision, but let's talk about why. Generally speaking, when iterating on a system, we try to be careful of not making too many changes at once, so as to better discern and analyze the impact of each of those changes individually. And with something as big as the Catalyst, making too many changes at once could jeopardize our ability to balance its place in the gearing ecosystem in the future. If we'd made it unlock even 1 week earlier and we discovered that was a mistake or didn't align with our goals, it would be even more disruptive to players to say oops and rewind it back. So let's talk about what we did change, because there was a lot that changed between Shadowlands Season 3, where the Catalyst was introduced, and there were a number of compounding issues in that season that made the experience of assembling your set back then in 9.2 as frustrating as it was, which was Sepulchre was too hard. Even on Heroic, especially on Heroic. A lot of guilds that would normally be clearing Heroic or clearing most of Heroic fairly quickly found it hard to take down the tier bosses in the first week and in following weeks. Because of the way it released, Lords of Dread and Rygolon, which also dropped tier, weren't available even if you could clear in the first week. There was the special trading requirements, which was tier had a special on top of the existing trade restrictions, had an extra one on top. Which meant there was many cases where people who had normal set pieces couldn't trade Heroic that dropped for them right after, or players who had their set bonuses couldn't trade items that would have finished the bonus for others because they didn't have it in that slot at that high enough item level. Great Vault accessibility. While it was a benefit that the Great Vault allowed all players to get set pieces, the rates weren't at all favorable compared to your chances of non-set items appearing. And many of our tests and projections were expecting a lot of players would meet the thresholds of 3, 5, 8 bosses killed each week, which didn't happen regularly for quite a while because of the high difficulty of the raid. You couldn't get 8 bosses if you couldn't kill Anduin, right? You couldn't get your full box unless you were getting it from a lower difficulty, which obviously especially feels bad to be taking a lower item level tier piece over higher item level stuff. So this meant from the very first week, the vast majority of players were behind our initial expectations for acquiring their sets. So that was what was changing in 10.0, and basically all of that changed coming into Dragonflight Season 1, right? Which was, there's no trading restrictions, there's way more chance of a set item appearing in your Great Vault across the board. Obviously, they don't tell us the exact percentages, but anecdotally, this has seemed to be true for me and people whose, vaults I've been tracking, right? People in the guild and stuff, you see a lot of vaults with like 1 or 2 set bonus items, whereas it used to be pretty much 0, and it would be really rare to see the 1. Great Vault slots for the raid also moved to 2, 4, 6, and it was a shorter raid, and also, getting 2 was way easier than getting 3 in Sepulchre, getting 4 was way easier than getting 5, and getting 6 was, killing up to, you don't even have to kill Broodkeeper, right, but just killing up to Broodkeeper on Heroic, for instance, and versus killing Anduin on Heroic back in Sepulchre, and night and day, right? Much easier this time around. So knowing that the timing would still be controversial, we held fast due to other changes to get a look at how things would shake out, and our data shows these changes had an even bigger impact than anticipated. We were able to see that a vast majority of players filling between 3 and 6 Great Vault slots, which is the most common bracket for players who engage with the Vault at all early in a season. That's me. I'm a 6 Vault guy. I do not do the PvP rows. That's cringe. Either had their 4-piece set bonus before the Revival Catalyst opened, or were set up to complete it that very week. Players were killing more bosses on more difficulties than before, which led to more vault slots and more gear trading, which in turn led to progressing deeper into the raid earlier, which continues the positive loop of more players getting geared faster. That said, some readers will correctly identify that there's groupings of players who still were left out of this bounty. These are players who engage only with Mythic Plus, only with PvP, with 0 rating at all. These players still on average had decent luck getting some set bonuses because the Great Vault chances went up, right? But were extremely unlikely to complete their 4-piece before the Catalyst arrived. Left out of this point here as well, which is it's a fairly small group, but in a world of Master Loot, right? A lot of guilds are running Master Loot effectively, even though of course everybody technically has the opportunity to roll need. Many guilds, including several heroic guilds, are running Master Loot, right? And so tanks and healers in the high-end guilds, but also just in the low-end guilds, whoever is not, for whatever reason, the target for the loot, is another set of people that, even if a lot of tier drops in the raid, you know, if you're a healer or a tank in a high-end guild, you are potentially not getting it for ages if you're also on a, you know, Zenith token or whatever that everybody wants, or I don't know what it was for your guild. For my guild, we had too much venerated and nowhere near enough Zenith. I don't know if that was everybody else's case, but yeah, so that is another group that were definitely also still left behind, was whoever was not the... If you were in a guild that prioritized finishing 4 sets before, rather than giving everybody like 1, 1, 1, 1, which is kind of the, you know, that makes the most sense in terms of powering up your raid, but obviously it's the least fun in terms of if you're that person getting absolutely nothing until everybody else has their stuff. Okay, so that's the basics of Season 1, but we think we can do better for more players, so let's talk about what we're changing. First, they're reverting the weekly quest stuff, so basically they wanted to experiment with making the acquisition require some more effort and investment on the player's part in lieu of having a currency cost, but in so doing we ended up taking a step backwards on one of the founding goals of the Catalyst system itself, mid or late season catch up for new or returning players, because if you come back right now, you only can get 1 charge that week, and you're a month away from your 4-piece still if you're returning, which, yeah, it's an unforced error for sure. 9.2 system would greet fresh 60s with many Catalyst charges ready to craft an entire class set if you get a bunch of Flux, which was another, obviously, barrier to new players. The Flux cost also meant you were several weeks out. Level 70 players in Dragonflight Season 1 quickly found if they were late to the party, that was it. It would always take 6 weeks to reach the charge cap, and if you failed to turn in the quest for any reason, which, you know, sometimes people just goof and don't turn in the quest or whatever because they don't need it that week, and then next week they realize they need 2 charges, and it's like, oh, oopsie. You couldn't gain another. It's not a total loss. Basically the new tech is something they can use in the future, but not allowing catch-up was a mistake we're going to correct. And that's all it needed, right? All it needed was to remember how many total charges you'd earned and just let you keep doing the quest until you'd reach that number. Then it, I think, would have been fine. The quick hits of how Dragonflight Season 2 will work are thus: upon the Catalyst opening, all players will receive a charge for every one of their characters. These function the same as they always have. If your main spends it, it doesn't impact your alts or any alts you may make in the future. Unlike in Shadowlands Season 3, there will be no cost as well, just the charge. No flux, nothing like that. If you've done the work of obtaining a convertible item, that is enough for us. Second, we're adding a new seasonal achievement. So there's still no... First of all, they don't say anything about whether the 6 charges cap is going away. I hope it... kind of hope it does. It's kind of this weird cap where it's like really rare that it matters, but when it does feel kind of bad. I think it's maybe there to make people feel like they're not supposed to sit on those charges forever, but 6 is already high enough that people are, like, if people are incorrectly hoarding, they're already doing it incorrectly up to 6, right? And then, I don't know, just, if you ever do actually run into that, it's an annoying cap. I don't know why it's there. Anyway, secondly, we're adding a new seasonal achievement, tentatively titled Dragonflight Season 2 Master. You may be aware that in 9.2 and in 10.0, we had some achievements that would require you to clear the Mythic Raid or obtain very high M+ or PvP threshold. In Shadowlands Season 3, it was a special item to upgrade all your conduits. I remember you had to do all the 20s for that. It was actually a fairly high... Was it all the 20s, or was it like 3k score or something, actually? Which was basically all the 20s, I think. And in Dragonflight Season 1, it was a cosmetic item that gave you access to the previously Mythic-only visual effects for all colors of your class appearance. Really cool idea. It's kind of seemed buggy or not super well communicated exactly what it's changing about your appearances, though. So I think a lot of people kind of missed what this was doing this season, but it's a really cool concept, I think, to get the mythic flavor on whatever color you like. We're keeping that style of achievement and reward moving forward, but we want to experiment with more seasonal milestones to hit as you progress towards your goals. Here's how it will work. Season 2 Master is awarded for clearing on Heroic, obtaining 2200 M+ rating, which is something like all the 17s? Maybe all the 16s or something? Or 1800 rating in PvP. Doing so awards a character a Draconic Mark of Mastery, an item that can be turned into a vendor for any heroic level class set of item of your choice. It can be earned once per character, but it's available the day Season 2 begins, and the item received is also fully upgradable like all items in the Universal Upgrade system, so it will start out presumably at, God, what's this going to be, 428, and it can go up to 437, 4... something like that. I don't know. It will. I think 437. Yeah, something like maybe 4. I don't know. Either way, it will probably be the low heroic eye level and then upgradable 4 times with the heroic flight stones to low mythic eye level. Pretty cool. This achievement and its rewards serve a few functions. We're interested in adding a non-raid method of obtaining a guaranteed set item for those players we mentioned previously. So this is M+ers and stuff. We're interested in testing the waters to see how players feel about being able to earn relevant power rewards for their progress and performance within a given season. For the most skilled and coordinated players, this token will be something they could earn within a matter of days or even a week. For others, it's a medium or long-term goal to push for that could provide items otherwise outside of their typical reach, right? Like if you're not somebody who can clear the heroic raid, who's not going to clear heroic raid, but you can get 2200 M+ score, a month into the season, bang, you've got a heroic raid piece that you can upgrade to mythic eye level. Lastly, and this is raid specific, Scale Commander Sarkareth, the final boss of the 10.1 raid, will drop 1 Omni token per defeat on all difficulties for your group, guaranteed. Specifics still being hammered out, but like the Mark of Mastery above, any player will be able to take it to a vendor and purchase a class set item of the level and upgrade band appropriate to the raid difficulty it came from. So this is huge here. I mean, this, first of all, this means there's effectively an extra boss's worth of tier dropping, plus everybody's starting at 1 piece instead of 0 piece once you can get this achievement here. So what this means is that players are going to be hitting, like if you are clearing the raid on even normal difficulty in the first week, and you start pushing through heroic in the coming weeks, you are going to be having a raid full of people in 4 set much quicker than before. It's also worth noting the upgrade system interacts really powerfully with tier, because you can get tier from normal and upgrade it all the way up to high heroic eye level next patch, which was not something you could do before. So you could effectively have your character in full 411 equivalent gear just from clearing normal raid, getting normal tier, and then upgrading it from M+ content that you've been doing. And you don't even have to be doing M+ 16s. You could be doing M+ 11s and be doing that, which is it's an incredible power spike compared to previous patch in terms of how quickly people will be able to get access to their sets. Because also worth noting, right? Like if you're just, if you're somebody who's farming multiple difficulties, you can get the tier from any one of them. And, there's more bosses dropping tier, an extra piece of tier that you're getting if you can get 2200 M+ rating, or obviously clear heroic. And then you're upgrading all these pieces way higher item level than they used to be. So I think that this is a massive buff. It means that even players that are, like, you really only need to have a couple of things go your way, right? You get 1 token from your master achievement, right? And then if you can get 1 piece from your vault in the first 3 weeks and get 1 normal and 1 heroic raid drop for yourself, bang, that's 4 piece right there. And it's 4 piece that is all, like, some of it is 411 equivalent and some of it is 415 equivalent, which is crazy. Comparing that to a character, that character in vault would have 3 set, and it would have 3 set with a piece sitting at like 398 and another piece sitting at 405 or whatever, much lower power. Okay. Also worth noting before we talk about the raid rewards raid reward charges in full is that sometime into the season, we'll be adjusting how often they drop in the raid as well. I assume this is supposed to be changes. We'll see. At present, class set tokens drop at a ratio of 1 per 10 players, scaling up to 2 per 20 and 3 per 30 guaranteed. we'll be reducing this number as the season progresses, as we've heard feedback that players making late seasons runs at Mythic Progression or AOTC very often have their tier sets already, and often at item level that's decently above or comparable to those dropping. This can make the bosses feel less exciting and rewarding at the end of a season, especially when hunting specific trinkets or weapons. Interesting. It is something that people are going to complain about this that don't have their set yet whenever it happens, but it is definitely true that there's like a lot of bosses that drop. I mean, the thing is that most of the bosses that this would impact in Vault of the Incarnates drop mostly garbage besides tier, right? It's like, it's Broodkeeper that has like some really good loot that's not tier, and Razageth a little bit, right? But like, it's like, oh, Dathia, oh, it's dropping a little bit less tier and it's dropping a little bit more necklaces and, bracers or whatever, like who cares? But this is interesting, especially if there are bosses that have compelling trinkets and items alongside tier, especially if they're ones in that middle position in the raid. And again, like, it's going to be after the catalyst, so you'll be able to just catalyze tier is the theory as well. And yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. I think especially, again, in the world of like, if you're a heroic raider, but you're clearing normal each week for the first few weeks, you will be able to get high heroic tier item level out of normal raid. And so heroic tier also becomes a little bit less valuable. Obviously you can upgrade it to low mythic item level, but it is still relatively a much smaller bump. All in all, it's been about a year since class sets have returned. We hope the above changes represent a shift towards making them more accessible for all players. We want to acknowledge the feedback that having raiding be the primary way all players obtain class sets doesn't feel in step with your expectations, given they feel like something that should be universally available to all styles of play. We're eager to see how Season 2 plays out, and we'll be looking for more ways to level the playing field in this regard as we continue to iterate. Thanks for all of your thoughts on this topic so far, and we'll see you in 10.1. Yeah, so I think this is a good set of changes. I'm not surprised, actually, that players have more tier than 9.2 by a lot. That makes a lot of sense. It does line up with things that I'd seen. I think this might be enough to stop the feels bad about the Catalyst release date, especially given the ability to like farm normal raid and get high heroic tier out of it. Without any super high score requirement to be able to do that. I think this is a good set of changes. I'm actually a little bit concerned about how quickly we're going to be full power in this patch as well, because one of the other problems that patch 9.2 had was that players were full power or close to it, especially in the min-max guilds, by like week 4, 5, 6 of the patch, and there wasn't much more room to go up from there, right? Whereas this time around, guilds, there were a lot of guilds that were maybe item level 405 average 6 weeks in, with a couple of people that still didn't have 4 set, and those players then were able to complete those items, complete those sets, and the raid got nerfed for them as a result of doing that. This time around, I'm a little bit worried that this is going to create a world of like, if you're walking in and there's a boss that you're wiping to on heroic or mythic on like the 4th or 5th week of the season, I worry that there's not going to be huge upgrades remaining for you, given how quickly you're going to get all the stuff that you need from this. So, and given how close like the normal and heroic gear is to mythic level with the upgrade system, and how good the crafted gear is and everything, and how low the cap is, or how high the cap is on crests that can be earned. So I'm a little bit worried that there's going to be brick walls in progression that are going to absolutely needs to get fixed with nerfs rather than with players getting stronger with gear. But we'll see how this turns out. In general, I'm in favor of, giving out. I think this seems like some really cool ways of making the gear more accessible. So I think this is cool. But yeah, I am a little bit worried about I don't think us being full power or closer to it early in the patch is necessarily a bad thing, because it's not like we'll be full power. I'm just a little bit worried that if we're 97% power instead of 80% power 4 weeks into the patch, that there's a lot less for us to get to. And so if we're 5% behind a DPS check on a boss, that's not going to be something that will be fixable on our own per se. It's not really something that my guild strives to kill bosses before the nerfs that would land on them, and we're usually able to do pretty well at that. But I know there's a lot of guilds that are, in that world 100 to 1,000 range that really bash their heads into walls until those bosses got nerfed back in Sepulchre, and I'm worried that this maybe is the kind of system that sets that up to happen again, depending on the tuning of Aberrus. But this is not necessarily a problem with this loot system. This is a problem that's also solved with good, quick tuning to bosses that need it. So if they're willing to start doing that too, then this could be all upside, no downside. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if there's anything I'm missing about the implications of this stuff. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.